И вот вы слышите, в данный момент работает град по нам. Вы все слышали, все видели? Вот осколки по нам летят. Смотрите, аккуратно голову берегите. Вот он. Горячий зараза. Вот осколки. Горячий, смотри, аккуратно. Да, вот только что.
Аж руку ждет.
Да, осколки.
Собирайтесь, выезжайте сюда.
A key commander of the Russian-backed separatists in East Ukraine, Mikhail Toystik, has been killed. The military chief, better known by his nom de guerre Givi, was killed in what the rebels called an act of terror organized by the Ukrainian intelligence services. Kiev has denied it was responsible. According to local reports, Givi died after a bomb exploded in his office. The separatists announced 2 days of mourning. A Kremlin spokesperson has called the killing an attempt to destabilize the situation in eastern Ukraine. Tolstik had taken part in many battles in the self-proclaimed republic, playing a key role in the fight for Donetsk airport. The conflict has claimed the lives of some 10,000 people since Ukraine's mainly Russian-speaking eastern industrial regions began the conflict with Kiev's pro-Western government in 2014.
The UK will be insisting that there is no case for relaxation of the sanctions, every case for keeping up the pressure on Russia.
What is clear is that from the European Union, the clarity we have on the illegal annexation of Crimea we will continue not to recognize, and the need to fully implement the Minsk agreements, including or starting from a ceasefire and restoring calm or bringing calm to the east of Ukraine is a must. The European Union will reaffirm, I believe today, the strong position and will work with all partners, including in the Normandy format, that includes also Ukraine and Russia, to find a way to solve the conflict. I cannot say where the US administration stands on that, but I can say where the Europeans stand on this.
This is the sound of war. A conflict that's often described as frozen, and one on Europe's doorstep that it seems powerless to stop. In the last half an hour or so, we are hearing certainly evidence of heavy caliber weaponry being used about a kilometre behind me, that if so, is a violation of the Minsk agreement. These are residential buildings hit recently by mortar artillery and reportedly rockets. According to the 2015 Minsk ceasefire agreement, weapons of 100mm caliber or more, such as tanks, should be a minimum of 50 kilometers apart to create a security zone between pro-Russia and Ukrainian government forces. Monitors here say that's being ignored. This is a frontline Ukrainian military position near Avdiivka. There are no tanks visible, at least here. The surrounding trees show how intense the shelling has been in recent days. Both sides blame each other for starting the escalation. The commander here denies the Ukrainian army are using high-caliber weapons.
When the escalation started, we were afraid of the enemy breaking through, so we pulled the reserves forward, but they didn't break through, so our tanks were not used, and we pulled them back to their previous locations.
The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, which has been trying to monitor ceasefire attempts, says both sides are violating the Minsk agreement and both sides are restricting access to their monitors.
In the wider Avdiivka, Yasinowata, Donetsk airport area, indeed, there are heavy weapons there, not just positioned, but they're also firing them. The explosions that you can hear in the background are the result of the usage of these weapons, clear indications that they're not just there, but also fired.
10,000 people killed in nearly 3 years of war and no ceasefire, let alone political solution in sight. Charles Stratford, Al Jazeera, Avdiivka, Eastern Ukraine.
Those who are provoking those manifestations of violence in eastern Ukraine, this may be one of their goals. To make sure, because they don't want the relations between Russia and the United States to improve, to make sure that there are additional obstacles for that improvement to happen. And of course, the crisis in Ukraine is one of the things which need to be overcome for the potential of Russia-US cooperation really to be fully utilized. This hue and cry about Iranian missile launches, ballistic missile launches, I was surprised actually to hear even American experts speaking on like CNN, describing the situation about ballistic missile launches. They're saying, well, this is a violation of bans by UN Security Council. Those bans were there before. All those bans were lifted when the arrangements on the nuclear, nuclear problem, Iranian nuclear problem were reached. And in international life, of course, you have to differentiate between your emotions, what you want to see, but also and what you are really sort of has the right to expect from another country.
Newly confirmed Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov are set to meet in the coming days. Ahead of that meeting, Moscow's UN Ambassador Vitaly Churkin gave an exclusive interview to RT America's Alexei Yarshevsky. He spoke on the current state of the U.S.-Russian relations and explained why he feels the two countries should work together against provocations in Ukraine and other war zones around the world. Take a look.
We covered a lot of ground in our exclusive conversation with Russia's ambassador to the UN, Vitaly Churkin, from Ukraine to Syria, Yemen, his potential relations with the new ambassador to the UN from the United States, Nikki Haley, Rex Tillerson, and the Trump administration in general. First and foremost, we spoke about Ukraine and the escalation of violence there. Vitaly Churkin again insisted that this violence could be provoked by Kiev as one of the measures to undermine the potential reset of ties between the United States and Russia.
I think that those who are provoking those manifestations of violence in eastern Ukraine, this may be one of their goals. To make sure, because they don't want the relations between Russia and the United States to improve, to make sure that there are additional obstacles for that improvement to happen. And of course, the crisis in Ukraine is one of the things which need to be overcome for the potential of Russia-US cooperation really to be fully utilized.
Churkin also mentioned specifically that the reporting coming from Ukraine these days is very one-sided. They're reporting about the deaths on the Ukrainian-held side, while there's basically no mention of casualties and destruction on the side of the anti-government forces in Donetsk and other parts. And that may be one of the reasons why even the Trump administration believes it has no adequate information about what's actually going on in Ukraine. We also covered the potential relations of the Russian foreign policy establishment with the new U.S. administration, despite somewhat harsh words about Russia that Nikki Haley said in her first address to the UN Security Council. Vitaly Churkin was very cautiously positive about his cooperation with his new UN counterpart from the U.S.
She started out by saying that she didn't want, it's not a direct quote, she didn't want sort of to spoil her relations with Russia, which I thought was a very good signal. But of course I did not expect her in her first speech in a Security Council meeting presided over by Ukraine to depart from the sort of the standard American position. She said we'll continue to do so and so, but you know, you and I, we know Anglo-Saxon sort of culture and history and psychology and psyche. Remember, never say never. This is one of the things which we sort of need to keep in mind. Things are evolving, so I would not be too concerned over a reiteration of the previous position.
So all in all, the impression I've got from the interview with Churkin is that it's really a cautious optimism now. But Vitaly Churkin insisted at the end of our interview that he expects a very busy and rough year in the foreign relations, but is still optimistic that things may actually get better. Alexei Rashevsky, RT, reporting from New York City.
Coming up at 5 p.m., Alexei and the ambassador will discuss Yemen and